Is the heart and soul of the Warriors dynasty about to get ripped out of the Bay Area? Draymond Green, the man who's been the emotional engine behind 4 championships, might be closer to his Golden State exit than anyone realizes. And the signs are everywhere if you know where to look. The whispers started quietly in front offices around the league, but now they're getting louder. Something's different about Green this season. Something that has Warriors executives asking questions they never thought they'd ask about their defensive anchor. The same player who once declared he'd retire a Warrior is now at the center of trade speculation that's sending shockwaves through the organization. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just about basketball anymore. The dynamics behind the scenes tell a story that goes way deeper than box scores and win-loss records. Green's relationship with the Warriors has become more complicated than most fans realize, and the cracks are starting to show in ways that could change everything. What most people don't understand is how much power Green actually wields within that organization. He's not just a player anymore. He's become a decision maker, someone who can literally veto trades and influence roster moves. That kind of influence should make him untouchable, right? Wrong. It might be exactly what pushes him out the door. The numbers paint a picture that's getting harder for Golden State to ignore. At 34 years old, Green is making $25 million a year through 2027, and his production is trending in the wrong direction at the worst possible time. His scoring has dropped to career lows, his three-point shooting has become a liability, and his infamous temper continues to create problems that extend far beyond basketball courts. Here's what's really wild, though. Green recently admitted to stopping a Warriors trade that management wanted to make. Think about that for a second. A player literally prevented his own team from making moves they believed would help them compete. That's not leadership, that's control. And it's the kind of control that can poison a locker room faster than any suspension ever could. The suspension we're talking about happened just last season, when Green was indefinitely suspended for his role in multiple on-court incidents that embarrassed the organization. But what happened during that suspension tells us everything we need to know about where his relationship with the Warriors currently stands. Instead of handling it privately, Green made it a public spectacle, using his podcast and media appearances to control the narrative while his teammates struggled without him. And that brings us to the elephant in the room that nobody wants to discuss publicly. Stephen Curry is 36 years old. Klay Thompson is gone. The championship window isn't just closing, it's practically slammed shut. The Warriors are stuck in basketball purgatory, too good to tank, but not good enough to seriously compete. And Green's massive contract is a huge reason why. But here's the kicker. Green knows all of this better than anyone, and he's been positioning himself accordingly. His media empire, his podcast, his business ventures, he's building a post-basketball brand that doesn't require him to be a Warrior. He's creating leverage, and smart organizations recognize when a player has one foot out the door, even if they're not ready to admit it publicly. The chemistry issues go deeper than most people realize. Veterans around the league have noticed how Green interacts with teammates, how he handles criticism, and how he responds when things don't go his way. The same intensity that made him great is now working against him, creating friction in a locker room that used to be known for its unity and brotherhood. Teams are watching, though. Phoenix has been mentioned as a potential landing spot, especially with their need for defensive leadership and championship experience. Detroit, where Green has connections, could offer him a chance to rebuild his legacy while mentoring young talent. Even Miami, always looking for veterans with championship pedigree, might see value in what Green brings beyond the stat sheet. The financial reality makes a trade almost inevitable. Golden State is facing luxury tax penalties that are becoming unsustainable, especially for a team that's not seriously competing for titles. Green's contract, which seemed reasonable when signed, now looks like dead money that could be used to acquire younger, more productive talent. What makes this situation even more complicated is Green's no-trade clause and his willingness to use it. He's not going anywhere he doesn't want to go, which limits the Warriors' options significantly. But here's the thing. Staying in Golden State might not be what's best for his legacy anymore. The most telling sign came during recent interviews where Green talked about his future with a tone that sounded more like goodbye than commitment. He's been careful with his words, but players around the league know how to read between the lines. When a guy starts talking about appreciating his time somewhere and being grateful for the memories, he's usually preparing for the next chapter. Championship windows in the NBA close faster than anyone expects. The Warriors learned this lesson with Kevin Durant, and they might be about to learn it again with Green. The difference is, this time, they have more control over the narrative and the timing. Green's defensive impact is still elite when he's engaged. But that's become the question. When is he engaged? The effort has been inconsistent, the technicals keep piling up, and his offensive limitations are becoming more pronounced as his athleticism declines. He's still one of the smartest players in the league, but intelligence alone doesn't overcome aging legs and diminishing explosiveness. The playoff implications are massive too. If the Warriors miss the playoffs again, which is looking increasingly likely, questions about the core's future become impossible to ignore. Green has never missed the playoffs in his prime years, and the psychological impact of watching from home while other teams compete for titles could accelerate his desire for a change of scenery. But perhaps the most damning evidence comes from Green's own behavior patterns. He's been more vocal about referee calls, more critical of teammates' mistakes, and more protective of his own brand than ever before. These are classic signs of a player who's mentally preparing for separation, even if he hasn't admitted it to himself yet. The Warriors front office knows they're facing an impossible decision. Trade Green now while he still has value, or hold on to him and risk watching his contract become completely unmovable as his production continues to decline. Either choice comes with massive risks, but only one choice offers potential rewards. League executives believe this summer represents the last realistic opportunity for Golden State to get meaningful value for Green in a trade. His age, contract, and recent controversies have already limited his market, and waiting another year would make him nearly impossible to move. Here's what nobody's talking about, though. Green might actually welcome a trade at this point. The pressure in Golden State is immense. The expectations are unrealistic given their current roster construction. And playing alongside an aging Curry while trying to mentor young players who may not respect his methods could be draining for someone with Green's personality. The most realistic scenario has Green finishing the season in Golden State, but the summer bringing serious conversations about his future. The Warriors will explore their options, Green will evaluate his priorities, and both sides might conclude that separation serves everyone's best interests. What makes this story so compelling is that both sides have legitimate grievances. The Warriors can point to Green's inconsistent effort, his public controversies, and his declining production relative to his salary. Green can point to organizational failures, questionable roster construction, and a front office that struggled to build around their aging core effectively. The relationship between Green and Warriors management has become transactional rather than emotional. And that's usually the beginning of the end for any player-organization partnership. When respect turns to tolerance, and tolerance turns to frustration, trades become inevitable. The final factor that could accelerate Green's departure is his own recognition that his championship window might be better served elsewhere. He's smart enough to see what's happening in Golden State, and proudful enough to want better for the final years of his career. So, could this be Draymond Green's last season as a Golden State Warrior? All the evidence points to yes. The contract situation, the chemistry concerns, the team's declining competitiveness, and Green's own evolving priorities have created a perfect storm for separation. The only question is whether it happens this summer or if both sides try to make it work for one more year. But based on everything we're seeing, hearing, and feeling around the organization, this dynasty's most emotional leader is probably preparing for his final bow in the Bay Area. And honestly, it might be exactly what both sides need to write their next chapters successfully.